Hillary Clinton is on the legacy media warning of potential election interference in 2024 and of an authoritarian dictator invading foreign lands. But is this a matter that could be resolved by her simply looking in a mirror? Hello there, you awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on our voyage to truth and freedom together. Remember, it's vital that you join us every day at these times. There's a link in the description that tells you how you can follow us. And if it's possible for you to support our content, please do. It's more vital that you support these voices than ever, if it's possible for you to do so. Today, we're talking about Hillary Clinton cropping up on MSNBC, Microsoft NBC, as it's officially called, in order to warn us of potential electoral interference in 2024, as well as the mendacious actions of an authoritarian dictator. So let's have a look at the interview where Hillary Clinton makes these claims, as well as looking at Hillary Clinton's previous record, Russiagate, and whether or not there's some potential hypocrisy here, and potentially too, seeding of ideas that means that when certain events happen, it's possible to query them in advance. It's possible now that we're living in an immersive environment where big tech companies are able to curate realities for us, present us with information that is favorable to their agenda, and completely deny access to information that's challenging to their objectives. A figure like Hillary Clinton is, let's face it, an establishment entity who has been in alignment with the agenda of the powerful for many, many years now, whether it's the Iraq War, various invasions of Syria, and through the Clinton Foundation has numerous interesting relationships with very powerful globalist entities. Let's have a look at this interview together and see if we can observe where the real threat to democracy lies.
Vladimir Putin has obviously your friend and mine.
Yes, indeed. For a start, just note that Jen Psaki used to be the spokesperson for the White House just a few months ago, and now she's being portrayed, presented, framed as an objective media voice. What we have here is just two establishment figures. This is no moral judgment on them as individuals. I'll leave that to you in the chat and the comments. This is simply an observation that their interests are in total alignment. How can the media analyse and scrutinise potential corruption within the establishment when they are plainly part of that establishment, observably part, not in some opaque, obscure, conspiratorial way? People leave a job with the government, start a job with the media, and vice versa.
He has intervened in our election in the past.
Right. That's just actually not true. And not only has it been disproven, it's the very kind of election result denying that has led to Donald Trump elsewhere being condemned, indicted. They're simply saying, Putin, we know this for a fact, interfered in the election. Well, hold on. Don't you think there are bigger systemic problems that need to be analysed? Do you not think that a bigger problem, one that might be resolved, is that the Democratic Party has abandoned ordinary people, operates entirely for a donor class, that Joe Biden says before the election nothing will meaningfully change, to a room full of financiers? The idea that there is some external threat, some baddie, some bogeyman that's causing all these problems is the type of false dynamic that allows them to continue to neglect the function of democracy, service of the people.
It's not something, as you experienced firsthand, it's not something we talk about a lot.
I think they did cover it quite a lot. It's all that was on the television for ages and ages. Look at the name of the show as well, Inside with Jen Psaki. You better believe you're inside with Jen Psaki. You're right inside the establishment with Jen Psaki. Get out of the establishment. It's trying to destroy you.
Do you fear that that is something that could be happening for 2024? And do you think we should be talking about it more?
Well, I think we should be talking about it more.
How can you pass this off as news? Should we be talking about what we're talking about now more? Yeah, let's talk about it some more. What, more than this? Yeah, how about a bit more? A bit less? No, more.
Because I don't think, despite all of the deniers, there's any doubt that he interfered in our election.
What? Is there doubt? I think there was. I think there was the revelation of a Steele dossier funded by the Clinton campaign's legal team. I mean, there's so much information that we'll get into in a minute. This is just passed off almost as light, casual, fireside, over a cup of coffee entertainment. But what it actually is mendacious propaganda designed to normalize information that is detrimental to your well-being. Oh, why did this happen? Because they interfered in the election. Oh, okay. What's disinformation? This is disinformation. What kind of platform should be shut down? These platforms should shut down. What kind of dissenting voices should you ignore? These dissenting voices. Look at what the objective is. Look at how this is formulated. Look at how it's funded. Look at your own lives. Look inside yourself. And for a moment, see if you can find some intuitive flame that informs you where the truth is.
Or that he has interfered in many ways in the internal affairs of other countries, funding political parties, funding, political candidates, buying off, government officials in different places.
Do you mean exactly like the US has done for generations? Jen Psaki just sort of nods along. Yep, some more propaganda. Could have some more propaganda. Don't you just sometimes want to question what you're being fed? What is this on the spoon? Oh yeah, it's the usual. No thanks.
That is his opus, his opus operandi, in the sense that he hates democracy.
Firstly, you don't say opus operandi, it's modus operandi, and people don't just hate democracy, do they? Like, ugh, democracy. People have their own agenda, their own lives, maybe even their own colonialism, their own imperialism, maybe even their own criminal invasions provoked by the events of 2014 and NATO infringement, but criminal nonetheless. What people don't have is just some sort of pathological hatred for the idea of voting in an election. Although there are some people that seem to hate democracy, and I think we're about to see one's face right now.
He particularly hates the West, and he especially hates us.
Especially. Bloody Hillary Clinton, if it wasn't for her, we would have global domination. Putin is probably quite busy, especially with all these illnesses that they claim he has.
He has determined that he can do two things simultaneously. He can try to continue to damage and divide us internally, and he's quite good at it.
He's very good. That's what he is. When he was a little boy, they noticed this guy's good at dividing people internally and turning them against each other. Vladimir, come here.
Hello, Vladimir.
I see a bright future for you. This skill you have for dividing people internally and turning them against one another. Why are people not just plainly talking about, look, God, our whole party is funded by the military-industrial complex. We're in no position to stand up against Big Pharma. You can see that from the bill we've just passed. Our business is lying. Your business, Jen, is making those lies seem like convivial, ordinary, everyday truth. And in order for us to facilitate that, we have to portray Vladimir Putin, who is, president of Russia and probably has all sorts of crazy stuff. He's been in the KGB. This is certainly not advocacy for Vladimir Putin. But it has to be turned into sort of a cartoonish villain straight out of Gotham in order to stop us thinking straight, in order to maintain us in a sort of state of continual bewilderment where we're unable to go, can we just put all this to one side for a moment and focus on how we might run our own lives and our own communities? What's going on with the price of our food? What's going on with the price of our energy? What's going on with Big Pharma? What's going on with democracy? What's going on with our media? What's going on with funding an ongoing continual war which you admit has no end in sight, has no chance of being legitimately won in the traditional sense, when you can't look after your own population, notably, observably, and obviously in Hawaii? Isn't it time for a real reckoning? Isn't it becoming increasingly clear that nothing short of revolution, a mass disobedience, a mass denial of these systems of corruption is going to be required in order to change the world? Oh no, I didn't like that question, Jen. Jen, is that you, Jen?
And sadly, he has a lot of apologists and enablers in our own country, people who either don't see the danger or dismiss it out of hand, or maybe agree with some of the positions he's taken on certain things, including his barbaric invasion of Ukraine.
Oh, that barbaric invasion. That's why I never did any barbaric invasions of any countries while in government. And when I did invasions, they were nice.
And so dividing us and then trying to seize territory in such a brutal way to try to expand his reach.
Can I ask you, and tell me in the chat and the comments, do you think that Hillary Clinton actually believes this while she's saying it? Or like inside she knows, oh God, we did that coup in 2014. Oh, what about the NATO infringement? Oh God, I can't actually talk about the degree to which it's criminal invasion because of America's historic criminal invasions of numerous nations, including but not exclusively Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, our willingness to engage in any war that is profitable, either on a resource level or a psychological level or for unipolar power. And what's going on? What does the inner monologue say? Because Jen Psaki ain't going to ask.
To try to restore the Russian Empire, if not the former Soviet Union.
I've got to restore the Russian Empire, if not the Soviet Union. Also, I must do that thing where I divide people on the inside and turn them against each other. I've always been so good at that. Oh, bloody hell. It's true, I do have bum cancer.
That is who he is. I said that for years. Part of the reason he worked so hard against me is because he didn't think that he wanted me in the White House.
Well, he wasn't alone in that. But it's not like you can't say that you're the anti-Putin, that Putin is like actually evil and therefore that you are actually good. I mean, if that were true, if human beings weren't complex, made up of a whole network of sometimes contradictory emotions, goals and objectives, if that weren't reality, this is just an odd framing for Hillary Clinton to offer us when we sort of know what her involvement in the Iraq War is. We know what her involvement in Russiagate was. We know what that foundation stands for, how it's funded. At this point, it's not possible to claim that you're sort of an innocent shepherd just trying to do good in the world and it keeps ending up in children getting bombed somehow.
We are where we are, and part of the challenge is to continue to explain to the American public that the kind of leader Putin is, this authoritarian dictator who literally kills his opposition.
Okay, just remember that phrase, authoritarian dictator who literally kills his opposition. Let me know in the chat.
Kills journalists, poisons people who disagree with him, invades other country, interferes with our election. That is part of the alternative we have to reject in this election. We have to reject authoritarianism. We have to reject a kind of creeping fascism almost.
It just says at the bottom, we have to reject authoritarianism and fascism. What do we got to do? You know authoritarianism? Yeah, when other people are in control and you can't vote for anything and no matter what you vote for, you get the same thing. Yeah, that. We got to reject that. Okay, so how's Hillary Clinton helping? Yeah, it's confusing, isn't it? And then fascism. Oh yeah, we got to get rid of that. What about when we were applauding for that actual Nazi?
Creeping fascism almost of people who are really ready to turn over their thinking, their votes.
This is propaganda. This is what's happening right now. What she's describing, she's doing. This is what this is. This is propaganda. It's reductive, it's oversimplifying, it's deceptive, it's dishonest, it's not including vital information. Why is it that you can't have on a news program like Jen Psaki, who's plainly an intelligent journalist and spokesperson, and Hillary Clinton, who's spent her whole life in politics? Why can't you have a conversation where you go, look, obviously the NATO infringement on former Soviet territories exacerbated this situation, and the truth is that we were involved in the coup in 2014. That's just a matter of record, and plainly there is an agenda to rebuild Ukraine in much the same way that Iraq was subsequently built after that war. And I can see that American people might be mistrustful of our agenda after, for example, the Iraq war, which I was, of course, personally involved in. And it might seem a bit high and mighty of me to say all of this stuff while I've been involved in the sort of droning and bombing of children all across the Middle East, and numerous times we've deceived you, but that's just the way that politics is, and I'm really going to sort of try and do better. The reason you can't have that conversation is because that is not what politics is anymore. Politics is a closed cube of deception. The function of the media is to gloss that cube while appearing to interrogate it. You cannot have real interrogation in those spaces. You can have them in these spaces, and that's why these spaces are being attacked, because in the end, I believe, and I pray that you do, that we'll go, why are we voting for these people that are trying to destroy the world and trying to destroy us and have no moral values? Why are we doing that again? Because we don't believe there's an alternative. Well, there is an alternative. You know that. You know it in your spirit. You know it in your heart, and you have to really, really hold on to it now more than ever, I think.
To want to be dictators, and we can't allow that to proceed. So I think it's fair to say that you have a tough job.
I don't know if it's that tough of a job. What do you want us to say on the show? Could you just say these things? Yes. Okay. There's your money. See you next week for more lies. See you then.
Because you have to talk about what's happening in the news, but you also have to keep people's eyes on what's right behind the horizon.
Talk about the news, but then keep people's eyes on what's right behind the horizon. I tell you who'd be good at this, Vladimir Putin. Because what he could do is he could separate us into two bits, and part of us could look over the horizon, and part of us could watch the news. But he's not going to help, is he? The bloody election meddler.
And I fear that, the Russians have proved themselves to be quite adept at interfering.
The Russians? Even just try and put aside the specificity of this particular issue. Doesn't it sound like the Russians have proven themselves to be quite adept at interfering? It seems like something that belongs to a schoolyard or a couple of 100 years ago. Isn't that just actual mad racism?
And if he has a chance, he'll do it again.
like they do it for a hobby. So there you go. It's a sort of ascribing as pathological matters that are strategic and also, in many instances, in this case, just plainly untrue. Let's have a look now at the truth behind the propaganda. Let's have a look at Hillary Clinton's record, and let's have a look at subjects like election meddling, war, authoritarianism, bombing children, just some of the litany of things that came up in that conversation. We can provide you with a different perspective with, and get this idea, you can decide for yourself what you believe to be true. It's a tough job, though. An email released by WikiLeaks shows how the Clinton campaign and Democratic Party bear direct responsibility for propelling Donald Trump to the White House. WikiLeaks? I wonder what happened to that guy Julian Assange, because wasn't he... In its self-described Pied Piper strategy, the Clinton campaign proposed intentionally cultivating extreme right-wing presidential candidates, hoping to turn them into the new mainstream of the Republican Party in order to try to increase Clinton's chances of winning. That doesn't seem like the sort of plain-speaking, transparent democracy that's being described in the chat there with Clinton and Psaki, does it? Like, for example, sometimes what we do is we fund opponent politicians that we particularly dislike in order to create a false impression of our opponent's party. Oh, whoa, hold on. If you think of the founding fathers, if you think of the dreams of democracy, if you think of Athenian democracy, the idea that the populace, the public, the republic can together account for how society is governed, you wouldn't build into it, would you? Should we do this thing where we support our opponent? That's mendacity, that's Machiavellian, and it's passed off as normal. It's not even discussed. Why? Because if they were ever honest, the whole thing would come tumbling down, right? The Clinton campaign and Democratic National Committee called for using far-right candidates as a cudgel to move the more established candidates further to the right. What we need is a cudgel. A cudgel against racism and a cudgel against corruption and hypocrisy. No, a cudgel to cheat and lie. Clinton's camp insisted that Trump and other extremists should be elevated to leaders of the pack and media outlets should be told to take them seriously. That went well. Other messages published by the whistleblowing organisation show how while the Clinton camp was facilitating the rise of Trump, it was systematically undermining the campaign of Senator Bernie Sanders, Clinton's left-wing opponent. How can they claim to have any moral superiority? Look at what the general tone of that interview was, a kind of moral piety, wasn't it? But Putin wants to destroy me because he knows that I wouldn't put up with any of that stuff where he divides people in two and all of that thing that amoebas do. I wouldn't have that. That's why. You know, it's all very pompous, isn't it? Very sort of certain of itself. But actually, what they do is, right, let's promote those candidates. Keep Bernie Sanders quiet, for God's sake. He's got a bit too much to say for himself about democracy and the financial industry. That's what's actually happening. So what the hell are the media doing in, again, glossing the cube with apparent inquiry that amounts to little more than deceptive lacquer? Leaked emails from the Democratic National Committee show that the organisation, which is supposed to be bound to impartiality, sabotaged Sanders' insurgent presidential campaign, which had mobilised millions of people and inspired a massive grassroots movement. The sort of thing that they claim they're interested in, grassroots movements, people being genuinely interested in change, people of all genders and classes and races, etc., being mobilised and wanting to participate in their community. Stuff that they would just say when it's just words that you could just spew out into a friendly media environment. If it actually happens, they're like, oh no, that thing's happening where we can't make loads of money from lying to people. Quick, shut it down. That's the reality. Now, remember, one of the things that this pious piece of propaganda centred around most was Putin's alleged interference in the last election and the next election. 2 for 1. Let's have a look, once again, in case you've forgotten it, because the news moves so quickly these days, always a new agenda, at the Russiagate scandal. Hillary Clinton personally approved her campaign's plans in fall 2016 to share information with a reporter about an uncorroborated alleged server back channel between Donald Trump and a top Russian bank. Her former campaign manager testified in federal court. In September 2021, a lawyer for Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign was indicted on charges of lying to the FBI in a 2016 meeting where he shared information about the Trump Organization and Russia. So there you are, indicted in court. Here are some words from Matt Taibbi on Russiagate. There are 2 reasons the Clinton story isn't a bigger one in the public consciousness. One is admitting the enormity of what took place would require a system-wide admissions by the FBI, the CIA, and virtually every major news media organization in America. That's going to be an obstacle. The Clinton campaign created and fueled a successful years-long campaign of official harassment and media fraud. They innovated an extraordinary trick using government connections and press to generate real criminal and counterintelligence investigations of political enemies is mostly all based on what we now know to be self-generated nonsense. The world has mostly moved on since Russiagate was 30 or 40 current things ago, but the public prosecution of the collusion theory was a daily preoccupation of national media for years. And as you saw just recently in this interview, they're talking about it again as if it was proven rather than the truth. Disproven. A substantial portion of the population believed the accusations and expected the story would end with Donald Trump in jail or at least indicted. It's incredible how they can just create an alternative reality and it becomes sort of an unquestioned and almost objective fact. Clinton and her campaign systematically lied throughout both about collusion and about their involvement in disseminating popular theories about it. We know this for a fact. In March 2022, the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign agreed to pay a $130,000 fine to the Federal Election Commission for concealing their role in producing the Steele research, a role, by the way, her campaign never admitted to and which was only disclosed through dogged effort by the House Intelligence Committee nearly a year after the 2016 election. So they had to pay a fine and they denied involvement altogether. And then still, right now, this is not historic, even though 2020 is not that long ago, is it? Barely a year ago. Now they talk as if it's like, well, Putin hates me because obviously I'm so honest and he's always hated honesty and democracy and I don't think he likes these bracelets either. It's extraordinary, isn't it? Why isn't Jen Psaki, by the way, inside with Jen Psaki, going, well, that when you had to pay that fine though, why did you have to pay that fine? Jen, it's a difficult job you do.
You have a tough job.
These are the questions. Oh, sorry. Where do you get your hair done? This is not just misinformation, it's the most sophisticated kind of disinformation, an intentionally false story spread with official imprimatur. So there we go. Remember this word, disinformation. Some of this has been seeded in the public imagination quite deliberately and extensively in the last couple of years. Why? In order to shut down opposition. If they really cared about disinformation, there's a lot of disinformation right under their noses. Jen, we're not talking about that disinformation. You do a difficult job, Jen.
You have a tough job.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Those necklaces, do you not worry they might jangle on the mic? No, I don't worry, Jen. Another key component of Hillary Clinton's pious conversation was the condemnation of Putin's military actions and aggression, a subject that is quite close to her heart. A supporter of the war in Iraq, Clinton racked up quite the rap sheet during her time as Secretary of State, escalating wars, green-lighting coups, and generally maintaining and expanding US power around the globe. In 2009, Clinton stood with Defense Secretary Robert Gates, a Republican, and called for 30,000 more troops in Afghanistan. Do you ever wonder, what is the real difference between America sending 30,000 troops to Afghanistan and Putin sending troops to Ukraine? I believe it's wrong that Russia invaded Ukraine. I feel that the suffering is wrong. I feel like it's a whole godless, awful affair, and I wish it would end as soon as possible. I wish and pray. I sort of feel the same about Afghanistan, though. It's like what? Afghanistan's got too many syllables in it, and that G and the H and the F in the middle. Yeah, it's different. Afghanistan, Afghan hounds. I don't like it. I don't like their clothes. It's dusty there. Those are the mountains that they got. We need 30,000 boots right on the ground. It's the sort of same thing, isn't it? On most foreign policy decisions, including Libya, Clinton was in favour of equally aggressive action, if not more so than former Bush appointee Gates. Clinton and Obama got away with hawkish policies because they stuck to the language of humanitarian intervention and liberation. Clinton helped assert the right of the US government to intervene in any country of its choosing using the most brutal means possible to achieve its ends. Well, that's not that humanitarian, is it? Using the most brutal means possible to achieve your ends. That's sort of authoritarian and sort of dictatorial and sort of aggressive. But isn't that what Putin's meant to be? We're going to pause here now on this platform because we want you to join us over on Rumble where you can see this content in full. Please become an awakened wonder when you get there. Support our voice, support our community. You can see the independent media is under attack. There's no doubt about that anymore. You've seen the online safety bill. You've seen what's been going on. If you join us, if you support us, we will continue to build this movement together. See you over there. We're on every single day. Join us there. It's vital that you do. Let's get some purpose and some meaning together. See you there. Stay free.